Hey, welcome to the Fireside Tattoo Podcast. My name is Jake, and this is Julia Richey. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, and Julia is in Australia. So I don't know if you're our first tattooer, definitely the first tattooer who is in Australia while we're doing the show. But I don't know if you're the first Australian tattooer. Where are you from originally?
Well, I'm actually from Florida, but I've lived here for almost 20 years. So I can't shake the accent, which is annoying, but yeah, so it's a pity I'm not an actual Australian tattooer, but I do live here. So,
well, 20 years, you may as well be. I mean, you've been an Australian longer than you've been a tattooer, I assume, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was like 7 or 8 years old when I moved out here. So I'm more Australian than American, I would say.
How did you end up there from Florida?
I
mean, I guess it was your family, right?
Yeah, it was my family. Officially, my parents were missionaries, but I like to say that we were in a cult.
Oh, okay.
Which isn't exactly true, but it was just very sort of strict, legalistic, Bible Belt sort of Christianity, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So we were told there was well, I shouldn't say we, I was a very young child, but my parents were told there was like no churches, no Christians in Australia. Everyone was sort of evil pagans, worshiping the devil, which obviously we came here and found out wasn't true. But yeah, that's the long and short of it.
So the goal was to go down and save Australians, just thinking that they had no Christianity there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really embarrassing to say, to be honest, but yeah, it was, and yeah, I won't go too far into that just because it's all a bit nasty,
yeah,
but
yeah, it's funny.
We're still here.
Yeah, is your whole family is still there?
Yeah, we've all married Aussies, so we're stuck now.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah. I've watched, and yeah, we don't have to go down that rabbit hole of like fundamental Christianity or the culture or anything, but I've gone down this trail of watching, like, I watched the Waco thing on Netflix that was so good, and I watched another one on this kind of cult that was up in Oregon. I've been watching more like fundamentalist kind of cult documentaries, not intentionally. They just like pop up and I end up watching all of them, and they've been so good. All of them have been. So
yeah, I haven't seen that one. I've seen there was one called, I don't remember. It was about the people who wore like orange.
Yeah, up in Oregon or that area, like
something like that.
Northwest. Yeah, he was like he was from India, right? And then
Wild Country, I think.
Wild Country, yeah.
Wild Country, something like that.
That was awesome. I loved it. It was really, really
that was a good one.
Yeah. So was the Waco one. Do you remember? Well, so how old are you?
26.
26. Okay. So yeah, you would have been the Waco, Texas thing. I remember I was in high school whenever it happened, and so I remember the way it was presented to us in the news back then, and then like watching the documentary on it now, and it's like, oh my God, we knew really nothing at all about it. It was presented in such a backwards kind of way back in the early 90s when it actually happened. But anyways,
this would have been a twinkle in my daddy's eye.
Right. Yeah. Well, we can move away from the cult talk, I guess. But
I really overstate when I say a cult. I say it kind of jokingly because it was just a weird group of Christians. I don't think Christianity is a cult, but this sort of circle we were in was just like that. So so I shouldn't overstate it. I don't want to poop all over it, but
right.
It was just, we weren't allowed to wear pants. The girls, we had to wear dresses. It's not like we were running around half naked, but yeah, not allowed to wear pants, not allowed to play cards, go to the movies, not allowed to drink alcohol, just random things like that. So it wasn't child sacrifice kind of cold.
Right.
But yeah, you get what I mean, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you decided, so what made you, well, two questions. What made you get into tattooing to begin with, and how did your family react to you becoming a tattooer?
Yeah.
I mean, so now you're hands are tattooed and stuff, so that I'm sure.
Yeah, my family loves it because they get free tattoos.
Oh, okay.
They've come out of the sort of, they're still Christian. I'm still Christian myself, but it's obviously way past all that stuff. So it's more just sort of casual. But yeah, no, they love it. They love the free tattooing and stuff. But how did I get started? I guess, well, I was initially I studied social sciences in university, but it really just wasn't working. My husband and I had tried to have kids for a couple of years. I was very, very young. I was like 22 when we started trying to have kids, and so that sort of wasn't working out. And at the same time, I was thinking, well, if that's not going to happen, I've got to find something I can do that I can be happy getting up in the morning every day for the next 40 years or so. So I looked around sort of casually for an apprenticeship for a while, kind of with no luck. But I mean, if I'm honest, I wasn't really trying hard enough, because you've really just got to hit it. But anyway, I got really lucky. My brother had a friend at the time who was a really nice guy. He was Thai, who ran a shop about 15 minutes up the road from me. And one day I jokingly said to Grant, my brother, you reckon you could get me an apprenticeship? And I figured, I was kind of joking. I just graduated from university, and sort of was looking at being a chaplain. But he was like, yeah, probably. And then I kind of just showed up the next day and annoyed my way into, an apprenticeship the way you do. And yeah, that was it. I worked there for like 2 years. And I only just left in June.
Oh, okay.
So, so I'm really green. Like I'm not like a veteran tattooer.
We didn't talk about how this podcast came about, but you reached out because you've been watching Fireside. You reached out through Instagram and just kind of presented a few ideas about some of the differences in tattooing in Australia versus the States, and particularly through COVID and all that. So that's how this discussion ended up kind of taking place. What was your drawing background before? When you said you'd gone to university, so
so I didn't study art at uni at all. At college. I had always wanted to, but everyone kind of said, oh, it's just a phase, like, you'll get over it and you'll regret it and all that stuff. So I didn't. It was more just I always drew as a kid. Really just doodled. I didn't really like work on developing sort of like really good art skills. Like I can't do realism for my life. And honestly, I don't really want to either, but even if I wanted to, I don't think I could. I really respect that skill when people have it. So, but yeah, no, I'm very just self-taught. Just my mom was into art, but that was about the extent of it. So
So what was the apprenticeship kind of like? You had talked a little bit. We made, or you sent over a few notes just so I had a little bit of a better idea about who you were and all of that. And some of the notes you talk about the differences in or the lack of regulation for the most part in Australia versus the US. What are apprenticeships like, kind of, or do you know as a whole what they're like, or can you just tell based on your one experience?
Yeah, we're really lucky here in terms of other states in Australia do have a little bit more regulation, but in Melbourne, you don't have to be licensed to be a tattooer. And apprenticeships, I don't know if it's this way in the States. I'm assuming it's different state by state, but apprenticeships here are completely informal. Like there's no paperwork, no sort of, you don't really get anything out of it except for experience. And of course it's unpaid, to be expected. But here, and I think this is probably from what I've gleaned from just watching interviews with other people on your podcast, for example, there's a lot of like sort of mistreatment of apprentices. And I'm not saying like I was like, I probably had a better situation than most people. But yeah, it's because it's unregulated, we kind of have, it's like the Wild West. Like, you can get away with a lot, you know. Yeah, I don't know.
I think
feel like
there are
I've lost
states. Yeah, no, I think there are states like that. You're right. It is state by state in the U.S. And if I'm not wrong, unless it's changed recently, like Texas, for example, which is a huge tattoo state. I mean, there are tons and tons of tattooers and tattoo shops in Texas. And there are no artist licensed there. Someone I'm sure will correct me if I'm wrong, but there used to not be artist licensed there. Shops had to be licensed, but the artists themselves did not have to be. And then so you kind of like so that's Texas, and then you go someplace like Oregon where you can't even apprentice anymore, and it's all, you know, formal tattoo schools with.
I heard that. That's crazy.
Like, it's really crazy, and it's been met with a lot of, well, when it first happened in Oregon, it was met with a lot of pushback from tattooers just in general. They thought that, you know, the apprenticeship was the traditional way, and it's the way that it should be done, and that tattoo schools would saturate the market with too many tattooers in one town and things like that. If they're cranking out, you know, 20 students a semester or whatever that are trying to get into tattooing in that area. So there were a lot of legitimate concerns, and I think the biggest concern being that it would just turn into these apprenticeship factories unless you were really careful about who's designing the curriculum and who's like actually teaching it and whether or not they're really qualified and all of that. So it's been, I've spent a little bit of time in Oregon, and I don't know if we still are, but for a little while we were licensed, Fireside was, as a continuing education, like a certified continuing education service for them. I just happened to do this kind of like traveling show with another tattoo company, and they got us all licensed, and these people were the people I was with, Spirit S8, the ones who make all their stencil paper, they were doing this kind of roadshow teaching people how to use their products and stuff like that. But the tattooers came there because they had to have continuing education credit hours after they graduated. Yeah, almost like whatever, like if you were in the medical field or something like that, you had to have so many hours. So it was really an interesting kind of setup that they have there. And I really don't know how.
Kind of cool.
Yeah.
Kind of cool, but kind of insane because, I mean, I don't imagine there's a lot of providers for that kind of thing.
No, I think that's still the biggest concern. And talking to Oregon, you know, based tattooers, there definitely are some apprenticeship factories where there's like maybe a shop with a school, or, you know, a tattoo school with a shop attached to it, and you have to stay on, right? You have to kind of like stay on. Maybe they have 20 booths in the shop, and part of graduating their courses, you have to give them 3 years, you know, probably taking 20 or 30% of your tattoos rather than 50 or, you know, percent or whatever else. So I'm sure
it's really good for the people who own it.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know that for a fact, but that's just kind of the word.
Yeah. I don't want to like shit on Oregon.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah. You're allowed to swear. Yeah. No. And Oregon's an awesome place. I do love it. So you moved, I looked through some of your work, and you've, I want to remind me to get into the Flash thing as well. So since you've been in lockdown, I just noticed that your page is full of like variations of some kind of similar Flash, like different variations of a subject matter and stuff like that.
I'm done.
Well, looking further back, it looks like you take a pretty traditional approach to your actual tattoos. Like, we're going further back into your feed from before you guys were shut down.
Right. So, I guess this goes back to my apprenticeship. Like, it wasn't the kind of thing where I was able to, like, do tracing Flash all the time, like doing traditional tattoos like Bertram, you know, Sailor Jerry type stuff. Like, it wasn't really that kind of market where I was tattooing. It was a street shop, so it was a lot of like, you know, Pinterest style. A lot, like, probably the tattoo I did the most times in the 2 years I was there was it was always like a what do they call it? EKG lines, like, you know, like a pulse.
Yeah.
And then it would have like a name and then a heart at the end.
Right.
I won't say anything about the quality of that style of tattoo. It's, you know, none of my business what people want to get. But yeah, so it was a lot of sort of just whatever walks in the door kind of thing. So it's been really fun taking the opportunity during lockdown to sort of hone my more like old school style traditional skills. not in tattooing so much, but just in drawing. Because that's actually something I find really hard is traditional, because it's like every line really matters. Like not so much, I mean, obviously like the quality of the line work and stuff, but more in terms of designing the tattoo. Like you can't, there's no space to hide in details and stuff. Like everything has to be really intentional. So yeah, I'm trying to really push myself and learn through that. But
I think that.
But yeah.
Any small inconsistency, a wonky line, a wave, inconsistency in the thickness of a line, blends or color fills that don't meet the line, things like that. The way that I tattoo with layering and all of that, and a lot of soft lines and lost kind of edges and stuff like that, I can get away with so many technical issues. I try not to have them. I mean, I try to make everything super solid and clean, but I can get away with quite a bit with that style of tattooing. But in anything traditional, you can't at all. I had just last week. I took on, I've done this really a black and gray sleeve, like a lion and lamb kind of sleeve on this guy who's become a friend. And, we probably have 40 or more hours into this sleeve, and he wanted me to pull a verse, that the lion and lamb verse, I forget exactly what it is, over onto his chest. And I never do lettering. I hate it with a passion. And I was just like, I broke down and did it because he's a friend and because he had already invested so much time with me. And I realized instantly, like, that, how difficult it is to do, this is maybe 3 or 4 lines or something like that, 3 or 4 different lines of text. And like every small, like just, the thick line going down and the thin line going up or something like that. Like if that thick line isn't the same as this thick line, it can be minuscule. It just jumps out at you. And it's funny, maybe 30 minutes into the tattoo, he was like, this is much harder for you than the rest of the sleeve, huh? And I was like, yeah, why? And he was like, because you haven't said anything. We haven't been joking. He's like, this is the most boring tattoo experience that I've ever had. And I was like, yeah, well, you pushed me into it and I hate it.
Yeah, you go into this mode where you're like really focused and like sweating, and like you stand up and then like you're all soupy.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Those are the worst. Oh.
Yeah, but I mean, early on, and you've been tattooing how long now? Remind me.
2.5 years. So
yeah,
not long at all.
a lot of times like that, this stuff like you're talking about, the EKG with the heart and the names and stuff like that. It's really it's kind of trial by fire, but it's like the best way to learn that stuff.
Yeah, so absolutely. It's great for technical stuff. And I guess for me, I was kind of lucky being able to sort of do what walks in the door, like in a street shop style, for a while, because it did force me to sort of develop technical skills that I might have otherwise neglected if I just sort of done whatever I wanted. Because there was a ton of script on the ribs, just the things you don't want to do. It was all that. So, so I did get, a good sort of basic understanding of the craft itself. But it's just more artistically, I feel a little bit stunted, a little bit behind sort of my peers. But lockdown's been great for that. So.
Oh, how so? Just
having time to draw. I mean, because like when I was at my old shop, I was there, 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. So there was no time for sort of anything except for, cranking through, 4 or 5 clients a day, as many as I could fit. So just having like the time to breathe has been really cool.
Right.
And of course you might know from the notes I sent you that, between the 2 lockdowns, so there's a lockdown in March, April sort of time, and then there's been another lockdown since July 9th. So between those 2 lockdowns, I was still working in that old shop, and then things sort of went a bit sour, and then I left there and then started a new job sort of a few days later. And at the new shop, it's great because it's like I'm there like 3 days a week. Well, I will be once we start back up again. I was only there for a week before lockdown, but 3 days a week, and you sort of manage your own client base and stuff. So it's a lot more relaxed, casual sort of. So hopefully I'll be able to maintain sort of drawing time and regular things going forward in that shop. But yeah.
Is it more of a street shop environment as well, or is it more of a custom kind of?
It's I wouldn't say a street shop because it's upstairs. So
Okay. There's not a lot of you have to go there with the breakfast, huh? Yeah,
exactly. So there's it's in a busy part of town. It's in Footscray, which is maybe like 15 minutes outside of the main city. So it's a pretty bustling area, but because it's sort of upstairs, it's really hard for people to find. Like, you don't get as many random walk-ins, which, is kind of a blessing and a curse. Obviously you have more time to do what you want to do, but less time or sort of less, just like financial stimulus coming in constantly. Yeah. So, but I think it's better for me anyway. Everybody likes something different.
It's awesome that you're able to find another spot so quickly, especially kind of like right in the middle of COVID with 2 lockdowns and all of that. How did that happen? Have you formed some decent tattoo relationships in a couple of years, or was it just happenstance, just dumb luck?
I was really, really lucky. When I started my apprenticeship, there were 2 other apprentices at the shop. If that gives you an insight into sort of what kind of shop it was. 2 other apprentices and myself, and then 1 like principal tattooer.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. But it was really lucky for me because one of the girls, because it was all girls, of course. One of the girls who was
the principal tattooer the owner of a woman as well, or
no?
No, he just brought on all
young female,
of course,
eager,
right,
aspiring tattooers. So,
right.
But one of the girls that I had apprenticed with it was only a couple of weeks before something happened and she had to go. But we became really good friends, kept in touch. And then when I lost that job, I texted her. I was like, hey, if you hear anything about any shops, like, just can you let me know, because I'm desperate. And then I think I lost that job on a Saturday, and by the Wednesday, she was like, oh, my boss is opening a new shop out in Geelong, which is like about an hour away from me, an hour and a half. Sorry, it's actually Torquay. Sorry, I don't want him to correct me. But anyway, so I had texted him and I said, hey, I'd love to work in your shop in Torquay. I'm happy to pay booth rental or whatever you want. And then he got back to me and was like, actually, I've got room for you in Footscray. So I was so lucky because Molly, my friend from the apprenticeship before, she vouched for me and got me that. So thank you, Molly. If you're listening.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, but you only had about a week or so to work with everyone there to see.
Yeah, I was only there a week. But it was kind of good because like I was really panicking because I wasn't able to take my clients with me from the old shop. So it's kind of given me time to sort of really work on Instagram, which is something I completely neglected. Didn't really use it all hardly, and sort of rebuild sort of a client base. Cause I mean, I had maybe 15, 20, like not a lot, of regular like clients that would keep coming back. And so all those are pretty much gone except for like one that had my personal phone number or whatever. But yeah, so it has been like, even though it was only a week, like I was kind of relieved because I was like, okay, I can breathe. Like I can just slowly build up, a base of clients. So sorry, this must be super boring.
No, that's, I think that's a good lesson as well. So your old shop was kind of holding all the client information. You didn't have much of an online presence. So when that all went down, I mean, that's a big deal. If you had 15 or 20 regular people that now don't know how to find you very easily. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That might be, that's something I think that probably some other, younger tattooers who don't have a big online kind of presence and stuff yet might want to pay attention to, because if something like that were to happen, that's kind of a tough thing to have to start over.
It's important.
Yeah. And it seems like something that would be a non-factor today because we're all so easy to find in every way. But for whatever reason, like I know a lot of tattooers that are just like you, they just didn't get into social media for whatever reason. Really, some of the best tattooers on the planet, unless you were around back in the 90s and 2000s when they were in magazines, they just didn't make that transition to online life. And I assume they're all still cranking out great tattoos. You just never really get to see them, unless you like happen to live in the town where they live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like they had business cards. We have social media.
Yeah. So while we're on the subject of drawing and of actually tattooing, before we get into some of the stuff on the differences and like how you guys have dealt with COVID and maybe some of the other kind of differences, you made one. I'll get to it in a minute. There was one point that you made in one of these notes that caught me off guard. But let's talk a little bit about the. You've got a flash curation, curated tattoo flash page that you started building on Instagram, huh?
Yeah, so it's kind of an experiment to just like see how I can use social media to build sort of a community, I guess. It's called Tattoo Flashers.
Good name.
And basically I just find flash that I like and I repost it and credit the artist, so it gives them a little shout out. It doesn't have a lot of followers or anything, so it's not like, if they get shouted out, it's not like a huge deal or anything, but it's just a bit of fun for me and kind of a way for me to experiment with social media and how it works and stuff, because I've got my personal account, which it's a business account, but I just know so little about Instagram and all of it, so it's kind of just like an experimental thing. But yeah, if people have flash that they've been painting and want to share, I can't promise that you'll get like followers or anything from it, but it'll look pretty on my page. So
yeah, tattoo flashes. I love really well curated pages. And when I first got on Instagram, there was like tattoos of Instagram or whatever, and half of them were just like the tattoo was a non-factor. It was just that the woman wearing it was half naked or the dude had crazy abs or whatever. And it was like, well, the curated pages I didn't care much about. And the first one that really caught my attention, and I've gotten to know the guys just a little bit, is Tattoo Snob. And I thought they've done, I don't know if you follow Tattoo Snob, but they've done such an incredible job of finding really unique, well executed, well thought out, cool, creative tattoos. And they post like 4 or 5 times a day, and they've got something crazy like 600,000 or 700,000 followers, but they deserve it because they've done such a great job of curating really fantastic tattoos. And so early on, I discounted, I guess, like curated pages. I was just kind of following tattooers and artists, painters, whatever that I liked. But now I find that I probably prefer a lot of those really well curated pages. And I don't know how many for Tattoo Flash there are out there. Have you researched to see if there are a lot of them already out, or?
Since I've started the page, I've noticed a few. I think there's one called Paperworkers. But I guess like the first one I had noticed for tattoos, which is more what I've been seeing, was Black Workers. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Oh yeah, I think I have.
Which is a completely different style. I've heard of Tattoo Snob, but I haven't I haven't actually looked at the page, but
yeah, it's worth a follow. I have seen that Black Workers. Yeah, I was thinking specifically about tattoo flash pages. I wonder how many tattoo flash pages there really are. I haven't ever looked.
I think there's a few. From what I've discerned, like from what people have told me and stuff, is they're kind of more like, you pay us $20 and we'll post your image on our page.
Yeah.
So it's, I'm sure there's a place for that, and if you can make money from Instagram, go for it. Like, good for you. But in terms of curation, I feel like it's a bit more anything goes. Whereas my aim is to just pick things that I like. Hopefully other people like them too. But it's kind of like, it's a little bit like Pinterest. Like, it's a pinboard for Flash. Mm-hmm. But But yeah, hopefully.
I'm with you on the. I think a lot of times you did, or I don't know if you still do as much, but seeing the pay for like a placement or whatever on a page, and that's where I started kind of discounting how important I thought it was that when I look at someone's following, just how many of those followers or likes or whatever were paid for, and what that really gets you. I think it kind of waters down the idea. click on someone and they've got 1 million, is a tattooer with 800,000 or 1 million followers. And you're like, oh my God. It's like, well, but you can buy that, I guess. I mean, at the end of the day, you still have to have stuff on your page that's good enough for me to pay attention to, I guess. And I don't really care what the number of subscribers are. The one kind of caveat to that that's weird, we've never developed a following for Fireside on Instagram. On YouTube, we organically just grew. We just got like 60,000 subscribers last month sometime. But on Instagram, I don't know how many we have. I know for sure it's less than 10,000 because my assistant, Allie, who does all the posting on Fireside, she was telling me, and she has a bigger following personally than Fireside does. And so she was telling me, she was like, if you, she was like, we need 10,000 subscribers so that whenever I do the video clips, people can just swipe up to go straight to the video. Right. And I was like, why do you have to have 10,000 subscribers for that? And she was like, I don't know, that's just an Instagram requirement. It's like, why don't they let you buy that as a secondary? Why do I have to have a certain number?
Yeah, like Instagram Plus or something.
Yeah. I don't understand the logic behind having to hit a subscriber count, because that just incentivizes people to buy subscribers. Because she even brought it up. She was like, you want to buy like 5,000 or however many we need, 2,000 subscribers so we can swipe up? And I was like, no, on principle, I don't want to pay anything for a subscriber, but I guess we'll just wait until it happens. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, people will buy these like bot subscribers, and then they'll find that they're not getting any engagement. So their posts will actually get ranked lower in the algorithm. And, all this I'm sort of regurgitating from Instagram experts that I've been listening to on YouTube and stuff. But it's just like, you can have that vanity number, but it doesn't mean anything. And it can really hurt you if you're not careful. Instagram followers is a weird thing.
Yeah. I think you instantly distrust someone if you see they have, for example, 20,000, 30,000 subscribers. And then you look at their interactions and they're like no comments and 100 likes or 45. Like if someone has 10 times the following of me and less likes on a post than me, than my averages are, then I instantly kind of distrust that person. I don't know why, Yeah.
It's funny because like it's a game, like, like people are points on Instagram. It's really strange. I mean, I'm super into it right now, but also it's just weird. And,
so sometimes I wonder, and I'm sure it's not true, but like when I see like like the number of subscribers versus the number of likes being way off or something like that, so you can tell that they bought the subscribers, then I start thinking, are they some of these people who are actually like stealing? Are these even their tattoos? Are they like, I have so many friends where people are just like, they're screenshotting their tattoos and claiming them as their own. So when I see them doing that with their subscribers, I instantly think, oh, are these even their tattoos? Or are they stealing tattoos and trying to trick me into thinking that they have a bigger following than they do,
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a different world. Like, I mean, I didn't come up in like the golden age, the 90s, like where everything's chrome. But but the days of magazines,
as they make it.
Yeah. Everyone was like the 90s was the best. Like but like everyone like talks about how great it was, when it was just magazines. I mean, in the one sense, like it gives people like you and I like a chance to publish our work, but on the other hand, it's like, anyone can publish anything they want. So it's very strange. But YouTube, I feel like YouTube would be better because it's it's more of a search engine, so it's like people finding you want to find you.
Right. And that is true. And we've never run an ad or done anything like that on YouTube. And we it took some years that we had to build a bank of content, but it finally started kind of snowballing and it grows steadily as long as we're still putting out new content. But as far as the kind of the golden age, I feel like that we're really in the golden age of tattooing right now, just because of how we can have this discussion and you learn so much. Even though the magazines were cool and it was fun to like go to a bookstore on a Friday night and like flip through tattoo magazines, you really saw mostly the same people in the magazines. It wasn't like they were just like traveling the world pulling all these different artists from everywhere. Like, if 12 tattoo magazines came out in a year, Guy Aitchison's probably in like 5 of them, it's just like,
definitely.
He just was. Yeah. And so like, not that that's a bad thing. I love looking at his work, but it's like, it's not like you were seeing. Yeah, exactly. It's not like you're seeing like, you get, now you can dial into, tattoo flashers and just find like cool flash or black workers or you can search for someone that just does like you know, 3D geometry or whatever. And that stuff was completely like, I didn't even know those were tattoos. They weren't tattoo styles at that point. They're only tattoo styles now because of this.
Do you know what I've noticed in the last maybe 6 months or so is the tattoos coming out of Korea. I don't know if you've seen these Korean Instagrammers. Their tattoos are so beautiful. They're really strange because they break the rules. You know, they'll have like but they'll have solid shapes that are like just big fields of color and stuff, and with minimal outlining or like outlining. Like I've seen one of these artists, her name is Pita, I don't know how to say it, you know, but she does outlines in gold, but she does it in such a way where it has enough sort of black or at least navy or something sort of surrounding outlines and stuff. So it really comes up and it's just so gorgeous, and it healed beautifully. It's amazing. And it's just like, you know, if it was just magazines, like we wouldn't be seeing different ways of doing things. Like, I mean, and you know, I love just a black outline, you know, some whip shading and all that stuff, but it's really cool seeing what people are doing everywhere, because it's just, but yeah, if you haven't looked at the Korean tattooing scene, have a look. Just go on Instagram and you can sort of search by location or whatever, like Seoul, Korea, and you'll just see the most beautiful tattoos.
I never think to search by location. That's a good idea. That's a search option, huh?
Yeah. Well, I found it because I was actually trying to figure out how to get more engagement with people in my local area. So that was like one of the suggestions, like Gary Vee or something had. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah, I know Gary Vee is a very high energy guy, huh? Like
probably on cocaine, but
yeah. I've never been to any of his. Yeah,
if
I've never
Gary
been to
Vee
any of
hears
his seminars or anything. But is he doing a lot of online? Is that his thing? Is online marketing for the most part?
He does a lot of sort of Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, like coaching for businesses. So I've only known about him for a couple weeks, but I'm totally sold, obsessed. Like my husband thinks he's a complete charlatan. But, but I think, you know, he's giving away all his best advice for free, and like a lot of it really works. Like when I try something he said, I'm like, oh, that you know,
actually worked.
That gave me more results than this other thing or whatever. So
I listened to an audiobook of his a couple of years ago. I don't know what it's called. I can't think of the name of it. I'm sure it's still in my Audible library. And he read it himself, and it was a great book, but it was exhausting because I'm reading it. You can only listen for a few minutes at a time.
So intense. It makes my ears tired.
Right.
But I also really appreciate him. So
So you mentioned some of the other platforms, and I haven't made my way into any of the like TikTok, Snapchat, or any of that. Is that it? Snap? Okay, I was going to ask if you knew anything about how tattooing was moving in this. That'd be a great conversation to have. I'm sure a lot of people want to know that and just don't want to take the time. Like, I don't want to learn a new app. I don't care enough.
Yeah, like I wish that a tattooer would figure all that stuff out and then put it on YouTube.
Right.
There. That can be your project.
I just need to find the tattooer who knows it. I'm happy to talk to them and put it out there.
Yeah,
but I just need to find the person. Who actually knows it.
Do you get a lot of people reaching out? Like if you said something like that on a podcast, do you get a lot of people contacting you saying, "Oh, I know about this"? Like
nowadays we do pretty consistently. People will they'll reach out and say they know something about, you know, about whatever. I haven't asked about that though. We may, if anyone knows, if you guys know, if you're using TikTok for tattoos, I know that for a while, who was it? I want to say I was either podcasting with Teresa Sharp. Do you know her? No. She's a Virginia tattooer, or she had a shop manager, Brandon, drawing a blank on his last name, Williams or something. And he had come from like outside of the tattoo industry, and they were exploring different ways to market. And they were using, this is maybe 2 years ago, they were using Twitch to do all their live streaming. So Twitch, I guess, is mostly for gamers to you can subscribe to someone on Twitch and watch them play a game that they play really well and learn stuff, I guess. It's more of a gaming thing, but they were using it to live stream tattoos. And I think maybe that was just before Instagram was doing a lot of live streaming and stuff like that. And maybe Twitch was more robust, but they were trying to kind of build a tattoo community there. And I don't know if you remember, but there was another what was it called? There was another app that was trying to it was Instagram, but it was specifically for like artists and tattooers. And all these people tried to make this big mass exodus to this app. a year or two ago, and then it kind of fell apart. Is that
Do
something?
you remember what it was called?
I want to call it. I want to say it was like, it started with a V. Now I'm just saying Venmo over and over, but that's the pay app. It's something like that. Viore.
Wouldn't have been Vine because that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it wasn't Vine. I'm sure someone can tell us in the comments because but I tried. I went in and started an account there, and just it never took off for me. I just never used it. But yeah,
I've heard LinkedIn is the next big thing. But it's hard for me to like apparently in everything, like, oh yeah, it's supposed to be like Facebook 5 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. But it's hard for me to.
Yeah, I've been on it for a long time. I never get on it, but I do have a LinkedIn profile. And I know in a lot of like traditional business world, it's been pretty big for a long time. Like in real estate or banking or whatever, office type stuff, relationship kind of networking kind of stuff. I know it's been big for a long time, but I wonder in the art world what it could do. Yeah,
it's really strange. Yeah. Like I've been on there recently and like it does sort of have a Facebook sort of a feel, which I mean, I love Instagram just because it's so visual, but apparently Facebook in terms of like if you're doing targeted ads or stuff or things like that is amazing. But what I'm hearing about LinkedIn is that the organic reach, because so few people make content on LinkedIn, the organic reach is unbelievable. So you could have no followers, post like a blog post or something, and then, you get 300 people that see it. So I don't know if that's true, but it's
that makes sense. I would have never thought about it that way. But yeah, since there's not a lot of just organic content being put out there, if you put something out, it's like I know tattooers who were on Instagram well before I was, and they were saying, if you just learned how to use hashtags in those early days, you just blew up, or you would always be like on the main, like what's new main page of Instagram because there just wasn't that much on it. And so people who were on back then built a big following. Now what that actually means as far as like clients or I don't know, like what the value really is I still don't know for sure, but
yeah, it's again, like what are followers?
yeah, exactly. Let's jump subjects a little bit. You mentioned in your notes that I guess you've heard me talk about how often I use Bactine. I should own stock in the company. You guys, they don't sell Bactine or any kind of lidocaine kind of topical at all in Australia? I
shouldn't say they don't sell anything. I think if you want something decent, you have to have a prescription. You can get one product called Numbit over the counter here. I think it's like 5% or whatever lidocaine. It's a cream, so you'd have to sort of glad wrap it and all that stuff. But from what I've heard, that works pretty well. But as far as Bactine, we don't have it. Every time I go back to visit family or whatever, I always stock up and bring it back.
Really?
Because you can get it here from people who sort of smuggled it in because it's technically illegal.
I wonder what makes it illegal.
It's we live in a nanny state. We have free medicine, so they're just we're very regulated in terms of what we can and can't do. But yeah, you can get it here from people who smuggled it, but it's like $50-$60 a bottle.
Oh wow.
So it's kind of like expensive. Like we also can't hardly get. Have you heard of Vasocaine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like in the blue bottle, and that stuff's amazing. It's so good.
Yeah.
But we have to order it from the States, and it's like $110 or whatever before shipping.
But so will this, like if you were to order it from like Kingpin, or can you? I don't know where you guys order from there, but like here we use places like Kingpin Supply. That if you were to order it from there, will they ship it to Australia?
It's more like we'll have retailers out here who will sort of try and get it in, and then when they get it in, it sells out really quickly and stuff. But I imagine they would get it from suppliers over there somehow. There's ways, but if we ordered it from the States directly, there's a small chance that it would get here, but there's also a chance it would get not quarantined. Quarantined.
Right.
Customs. Seized in customs. So, which is silly because it's lidocaine. Like nobody's going to have a good time just numbing up. Like I don't know what that's about, but
the crazy thing to me is that like the purpose of Bactine is it's like a first aid. It's for like scrapes and cuts. Like what do you do before you put your Band-Aid on in Australia?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, My old boss just slathered it in Vaseline and then popped on a bandage. Oh, you mean for regular boo-boos?
I'm talking about for regular. Yeah, I mean that's the perfect. It's not, it's not really a tattoo product. It's for just like regular,
for like
straight.
Kids scraping their knees. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of strange.
I don't know. Like we have products that like is Dettol a product in America?
Yeah.
So we have like Dettol wound wash and stuff like that, but nothing with any sort of numbing. So it's a shame because it's such a good product.
I don't think that I could do the type of tattooing that I do and have the clientele, like the way that my schedule works, just one big tattoo a day. I work from like noon until 6 or 7. I don't think I could do it without using something like Bactine all day, at least not in Provide. People will disagree with that because there are plenty of people that like tough it out for 10 hours at a time. But I don't handle that well as the person doing the tattoo. I don't like to feel people being tense and being uncomfortable and breathing heavily and all that. The
more uncomfortable they get, like they move around and like they just make it tougher on the tattooer. Like when you're having to hold somebody down as well as, manage all these other things, like it's just not ideal.
No, it's exhausting.
I love numbing. I'm the biggest numbing proponent person ever. Like, I know a lot of people hate it. They say it changes the skin texture or whatever, but I mean, I think it's great. Yeah,
I've never had that. The reason I used Bactine so much, and I use it just in my Nalgene bottle. I just wipe with straight Bactine all day. I've never noticed it to change the skin texture, and I've been doing it long enough now that I would consider myself an absolute expert on using Bactine. I can't think of anyone that uses more Bactine than I use in all of tattooing. And so I'll put my stake in the sand and say like Bactine does not affect skin texture or anything. But I have some of the others, like we were talking about, like Hush, Vasecaine, some of the other ones that are made to like, you don't wipe with them constantly. You like take a break, spray them down, let it sit, wipe it off. Sometimes those tend to make the skin a little rubbery to me. Like,
that's what I've heard. Like more from like my friend Molly, I mentioned, she does realism. She finds that if she's doing like a portrait or whatever, she cannot use numbing at all, or it just like sort of just doesn't work. I don't know, because I don't do that style. I'm not really sure experientially what she means, but she said like a rubber chicken, things like that. So I don't know, for just like regular for what I do, it's great, like, and it makes people sit still, and it gives me better lines and stuff. So but I have definitely heard that it can mess with things, so take it or leave it.
I mean, I think that probably you made a good point, that probably the difference in the styles of tattooing that that you're doing, like the traditional kind of like whip shade, solid fills, that kind of thing, you're kind of in and then you're out, whereas a lot of that more kind of the more fully rendered stuff where you're layering, you need the skin to be as cooperative as it possibly can be. So even a small difference, if you're doing color realism or something like that, even a small difference in the texture of skin, if it takes the workability back even 10 or 15%, probably it's not worth doing, because like a realism, like a color portrait or something that's done to 80% looks really bad. It needs to be done to 100%.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I know like with, especially like she does black and gray portraiture. She needs so many passes for different things, to build up textures and really subtle things. So I think any little problem with the skin would really screw that up.
Yeah. What do you do? Did you learn, we didn't talk too much about how about the specifics of your apprenticeship. Did you learn on rotary machines, coil machines? What were the kind of
rotary? Yeah. Rotary? So I bought an Inkjecta when I started. Like it's an Australian brand. I don't know if they have it over there.
Yeah, we have them. Yeah.
And it's just, it does everything. It's beautiful. I had a coil machine as well. And like I could use it, but I just find the freedom of a rotary, and it's a cartridge system as well. So it's like, I can just change needles like 20 times during a tattoo if I need to. Not that I would, but it's just so convenient. I only have one power supply, one machine, like nothing's in the way. I don't know. I love it. I know it's not like the old school, the cool kid way to do it, but
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I remember, Guy Aitchison, when I asked him the first time about that, he said that, he had switched over to rotaries and had always used coils. And he said rotaries made it so you don't have to be a mechanic to drive a car. And that's the best way to put it, I think, because when I used coil machines for years, probably 15 years, and I was always having to adapt the way that I made a mark to the way that the machine was behaving that day. And it was different from day to day based on like whatever. I mean, I didn't even know what it was. I would mess with it, but then I would get scared because I would always end up making it worse. Over time, I learned to tear coil machines down and play with them, and I understood them better. But for years, I mean, tattooing is intimidating enough on its own, even if you were using Sharpies that were permanent. Like it's intimidating if everything works perfectly. And whenever you start a machine and you can tell by the sound of the machine that it's not running the way it was yesterday, it gets in your head and you can't possibly focus on a tattoo. And the last thing you want to do is like stop with a client sitting there and start trying to figure out what's wrong and maybe make it worse. And,
and it freaks them out as well. Like I find, like, because I tattoo with the rotary, it's so quiet. My clients will say things like, this doesn't sound like a tattoo shop, or it's so quiet. Like, are you even tattooing? Like, it's just, I think it calms them having quieter machines. Like, with when I've used coils in the past, it's like, obviously if it's a big biker dude, like, doesn't freak them out too much. But like, if it's just like a girl coming and getting a quote on her ribs, like, you want that sort of nice, more boutique experience, like where it's relaxing, quiet, maybe they've used numbing. Like, you just don't want it to be like you're jackhammering their skin with and it's ironic because I find rotaries to be a bit more, they just plunge forward rather than, with coils, how there's sort of a softer hit, whereas rotaries, they don't care what
they make the full rotation every time. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So like, they are a little bit rougher, but I find just they're reliable. And just
so convenient. And I mentioned earlier that I couldn't tattoo the way that I do without Bactine, and then rotary machines, quiet machines being the other part of that, because it provides that experience that I want people to have. I want people to leave there after 6 hours of tattooing looking forward to the next time that they come in, not like their head's pounding, their body is swollen and they're so happy to be out of there. I think them leaving with that like kind of positive mindset that it went well and it was better or easier. I feel confident that the tattoo is always better than they expected. I've been doing it a long time. So that part, I feel like whatever they came in wanting, I think that when they leave, they'll go like, oh, that's better than I thought it was going to be even. But it's that, along with they're not in terrible pain. They haven't been listening to noisy machines. I don't play death metal. We maybe watch Netflix, maybe we listen to classical piano, who knows? Like but I try to make sure that it's very peaceful as much as I can.
Yeah, I think it's so important because like, even at a baseline, if you're having the best experience possible, your body's still going through trauma. So like, to have all that physical trauma, which you're taking home, and like, I think sometimes we do the tattoo and we forget about it. To a degree, whereas they're taking it home, they're dealing with it for like a week plus of, having to avoid getting it under the shower because it hurts too bad, things like that. Like, I think if they have that physical trauma and then the added psychological, like, oh, it's kind of a scary place to go to, they play these horrible, live versions of Metallica.
Right.
It's just, I think it's important to just treat them well.
Yeah, that's a good point. What we forget about so much, and especially as you get into doing larger scale work and things like that, if you have your best clients are there like every month, right? Like once a month. So first off, once a month, they're spending like a mortgage payment with you. And then second to that, they're basically always healing a tattoo. By the time the tattoo is pretty well healed, it's time for the next appointment. And if it's a back piece or something, maybe that's 10 sittings or something like that. And you've got like, they've spent an entire year healing a tattoo. So for those people, I want everything that I can do to make their life easier. I try to. And so things like topicals and and quiet machines in a peaceful environment, I think lend to that. That's an easy thing to forget, though. I'm glad you brought that up, because they leave and you've kind of, you forget about that tattoo. But yeah, they have to shower with that thing. It goes through every phase of sore to itchy. And I forget how much more my clients know about the healing of tattoos than I do, because so many of them are more tattooed than me at this point, or they've been tattooed more recently than me, even if they're not more tattooed than me. And so it's fresh in their mind. If we've been through 5 months of tattooing each month, at that point, they actually know a lot more about healing a tattoo than I do, because they're so much closer to it,
What's your process for tattoo healing? Like, what do you tell your clients?
Most of my clients now are heavily tattooed enough that they kind of have their own thing. I tell people, as long as it's clean and moisturized, and I did my job well, the only thing that they can really affect is how long it takes to heal, not whether or not it actually heals. It will heal. It'll heal fine.
Yeah.
But if you don't do anything at all to it and let it get super dry, it may itch longer, and it may take 6 weeks before all your flaky skin is gone. Who knows? But if you keep moisturize, it may take 2 weeks, or sometimes, a lot of people come back and they're like, you have to take everything your client says with a grain of salt, because so many of them will go like, it didn't peel at all, or my tattoo healed in 4 days. And I'm like, first off,
I covered it in salt and look at how great it was.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, first off, it definitely peeled. You may not have seen it, but something peeled, and it's not completely healed in 4 days. But I try to set people at ease and let them know that that as long as they keep it clean and don't beat it up, don't intentionally damage it.
Don't roll around in the dirt.
Yeah, and I did my job properly. Now, sometimes I do find, like, I push the limits of skin sometimes. So there will be times that I'll say at the end of a sitting, I'll say, like, I really worked with a small needle configuration a lot in this area. Like, it's probably going to be kind of beat up, and so you might want to leave that wrapped, at least till this time tomorrow or something, make sure that it's really, take it as that you're not like taking the bandage off too early and end up with a bunch of like dried blood, scabby stuff in it right off the bat. So sometimes, on a case-by-case basis, I might recommend something, but I've tried everything. I mean, I've tried the last year or two, I've tried using Sanoderm, I've tried dry healing, I've tried, just because of the podcast, anyone who has a topical product sends it to us. So I've got a stockpile of every possible, whatever kind of aftercare you can imagine. I've got a closet full of it, and I've tried a lot of them. And really the only thing I notice, I judge them by like the texture, like how hard or how easy they are to get out of the thing. And then, and how they smell, like, I don't know. Otherwise they all seem to be.
That's funny, because I feel like if they smell good, then they can't be good.
They can't be good.
I feel like if they smell good, they must be bad for you.
Yeah, that may be true.
You use Sanoderm. Do you use it all the time, or?
No, I don't like it for most of my tattoos because of the size that I don't like trying to place.
Yeah, you'd have to use like so many pieces.
Yeah, so I don't. The only time I like it, I do keep some around for when I'm tattooing at conventions. If for like one-shot tattoos, just to put on. Although now, one thing that Sanoderm and Tattoo Derm and those other ones are doing so well is that they have a booth at all the big shows, and a lot of times they'll like wrap the client for free or something like that. Like if you just send your client up there with a fresh tattoo, they'll wrap it, and then they'll sell them, the bandages to like change it out. So it's kind of like a little what do you call it? A little tripwire to get them in. But cool. Yeah, so I'll do that. I end up, though, for whatever reason, at conventions and stuff, I end up tattooing a lot of other tattooers. A lot of times it's people who watch the show or something like that. And without fail, they all want tattoos either at a convention, either on their hands or their neck or someplace that you don't want to tattoo at an environment like that. So it's nice to have the Sanoderm just because it can cover those areas,
Definitely. I'm allergic to it. I don't know if you've met many people who are, but like I get the horrible like hives around where it's been, and it's just nasty on me. So I get nervous using it on clients.
Yeah, I've had that happen a few times. Mm-hmm. Does it get bad around the does it affect the tattoo itself or just the surrounding skin?
It sort of makes a square. If I've cut it in a square, it'll make a square of like, and everything in that square is like red and sore. But then like the tattoo looks fine once it's healed and stuff. It's just uncomfortable. Yeah. But I'd hate for a client to like have that and then think, oh, it's infected.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I've had people come back that love the stuff, and I had people come back that say, "Don't even put that stuff in the same room with me. I'm so allergic to it." So
Yeah, because
you
I
know,
think like ideally it's really cool. Like, I mean, I've seen, you know, you've probably seen this too, like people on Instagram, and they're like, oh, I left it for 7 days, and then they peel it off, and it's like a sticker.
yeah,
But
yeah. I've seen that.
I don't know how realistic that is. Like, my clients always say it's gooey after like a day; they have to change it. So
Yeah, yeah, and I think that Sanoderm actually recommends that you change that first one after a day or so, and then reapply, and then leave that one on for however long. So yeah, that the first one, there's so much plasma and goo and stuff that I'm sure it's tough to
yeah,
leave on
it's
for that
all like
long.
puffy and
Yeah,
nasty and looks
yeah,
gross.
yeah. Let me. I want to change subjects. I know we're probably going long here. I don't know what time it actually is, but uh, you you guys are on lockdown again right now. What did they do? Like in the States, they did like they upped the unemployment amount significantly for people so that they could actually live off of it for some period of time. I think it maybe has expired now. Are they doing the same thing in Australia to kind of keep everyone comfortable in the meantime, or what's that been like?
I don't know if they've upped unemployment payments. I think they've done something for that, but we have a sort of a different kind of stimulus for that called JobKeeper. So not everyone gets it, but if you were employed, I think it's on the higher end of part-time or full-time for the year prior to the first lockdown, then you get a sort of $1,500 a fortnight JobKeeper payment, and that's supposed to be for businesses that are employing people. So, I mean, like most tattooers here are sole traders. I'm lucky because I registered as a company right before the cutoff date by accident. So I was able to sort of be an employee and get that. I know a lot of people are really struggling because if you are casually employed or like there's just so many different circumstances where people don't get anything, and we're not allowed to work. So like for some people it's been really, really tough. But also, I mean, they're taking care of us pretty well. Like, I mean, we can't complain too much. The lockdown's tough. You know, there's like we have a 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew. We can't like go visit family or friends or anything. Like my mom lives 5 houses down from me, and we can't really see each other. So it's
Wow.
it's kind of weird. Like there's a few senseless seeming rules. I mean, I'm sure they make sense, but
Yeah.
but yeah. Sorry, you asked about
No,
job.
I do. I do want to go. I do want to talk a little bit about that. So if you were to walk to your mom's house, like if you're caught on the street, you have to explain what you're doing there. Are they really kind of patrolling in that way? And
Yeah, so we have police sort of drive through the neighborhood a couple times a day. So it's kind of, I mean, it's not that nobody breaks the rules, but I mean, if people are breaking those, they have to be really careful because I mean, it's really strange. Like, and I don't know if this is just the American coming out in me. Like, I feel like, oh, you're taking away our freedoms, you know, like I know even the other day, someone was encouraging a protest in the CBD, and they were the government was saying no, basically you're not allowed to protest, which
really?
to me is like, oh, like that's bad news. Like, you know, I don't want to be like Soviet Russia or anything like that, but and you know, it's not that bad, but it's always one of those like it's not that bad yet kind of things. Sorry, what was your question? I'm so sorry.
No.
I go on tangents and
No, that was the direction that I was going. Or I mean, originally the question was just about was just about how they were handling unemployment, and if you guys were all comfortable with it. Yeah, I did want to talk about that. How strict the lockdown is. You know, the one challenge that we have here, and particularly, I'm in Tennessee, so kind of like we're, probably a similar mindset to where you came from in Florida, in the kind of deep South Bible Belt area, where it's like, don't touch my freedoms, don't touch my guns, and you're not going to tell me to wear a mask, and there's a lot of this like. This kind of like redneck mentality. It's not redneck necessarily, but it's, it's Southern. And so they've struggled in a lot of these states they've just had outbreak after outbreak because, and you see these crazy things on the news where someone's trying to walk into a Walmart or a restaurant without a mask on, and they're trying to stop them at the front door, and it turns into a fist fight over a stupid mask. It's like, craziest thing you can imagine that happens in this part of the country.
Yeah.
But
do you guys have mandatory masks you're in Tennessee, right?
Yeah, in Tennessee. Yeah, and I think that they're doing it county by county. I may be wrong, but where I am in Memphis, in Shelby County, it's mandatory. Well, you know what? Not out on. I don't know if it's mandatory like on the street, but definitely every business that is open has a sign that says. I haven't been any place in the last several months where I could walk in without a mask. Not that I would, but that where I could. But we never had it. I think quite to the point that you guys do where you can't walk down the street. I have this a business partner in another kind of tattoo venture, a tattoo technology company that we're building, and he is based out of Madrid, Spain, and he only one person from their household can be outdoors at a time. So like he can't go on a walk with his wife or his child or anything like that, and they have like specific hours that they can go to the local market or grocery, to get things. And so we've been on Zoom calls, talking about whatever. And he says, guys, I have to break away. My grocery time is only for 30 minutes and it starts right now. It's really bizarre.
That's rough.
Yeah. Do you guys have that as far as how going to stores or shopping or anything?
So at the moment, the rule is one person from your household can go out once per day to the shops, and it has to take less than an hour. And that's to get essential supplies and whatever. But, and the other thing is we're allowed to, so I could go out for a walk with my husband, as long as it takes less than an hour, for our daily exercise. But, we have to wear masks, and like you couldn't stop and chat with people or anything like that, of course.
Yeah.
What else is there? So mandatory masks, curfew. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the extent of like the really specific rule. And of course, it's funny you mentioned like Southern, like, guns, all that kind of thing. Because we're not allowed to have guns here. I mean, some people would argue with me and say, oh, you can have guns. You just have to have a license and own this much land and keep it on a range and, all that stuff. But essentially we're not allowed to have guns. So when these things are sort of like ramping up, it is a little scary. Like because I've always been anti-gun, growing up here, like what do we need guns for? But the pandemic has totally made me understand that point of view of, like what they're for.
Yeah. Right.
It's pretty crazy. Like seeing police, like I know someone, just down the street, someone got arrested the other day for sitting on a park bench without a mask. And it's like arrested, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a different world.
It is. It's a bizarre time that we will not soon forget, and it is interesting to see how it's changing, or how it's handled, both from like the legally and the regulation and all that kind of stuff from country to country and even state to state, but then also how the citizens handle it in different areas. Like I have friends in New York, New Jersey area who are tattooers who took this much more seriously than I did very early on. And it's because it was so concentrated there at first that like basically everyone knows someone that had it, or, could easily have known someone who died from it. And where we are down here, it was so spread out that it's like, that didn't really happen. Now we have cases that they're growing, but even to this day, I know like 2 people that have had it and they're both perfectly fine. And so that, I think it's, that's a big part of it too. It's like your people's own personal experiences and how seriously they actually take it.
Definitely. Because I mean, I wouldn't want, my parents to get it. I wouldn't want, my little baby nieces and nephews to get it. I know it doesn't necessarily affect children that badly, but at the same time, like, it's like, what are we giving up long term for the sake of it? Because I know like I want to save people's lives as much as the next person, but also I don't want to find myself living in a completely different country than what we lived in a year ago. And who knows, like once we give these things up, like, will we get them back? Maybe, maybe not. It's just, it's one of those things.
Have
and I'm
they?
not an expert at all. So
Right. No, me either. Yeah, this is with this. I didn't intend for it to be a COVID expert show. I just
yeah.
a couple of tattooers' experiences with COVID.
Yep, exactly.
Have they given you any indication on when you might be able to go back to work?
Not yet. There's supposed to be an announcement on this coming Sunday about sort of the road out, but stage 4 is supposed to go for another 2 weeks, and then I think the idea is that either it will get extended or we'll move down to stage 3, which is basically the same but without the curfew. And no, I think that's the only difference, really. Okay. I'm sure someone will tell me I'm wrong, but that's the only discernible difference that I can think of. But yeah, as far as like when tattooing will be back, it'll be a while. If I had to guess, I would say after Christmas sometime, but I can't tell the future. It depends on cases and so many different things. And I know some industries will be able to go back sooner, but just not tattoo, beauty, hairdressing, whatever.
Well, it's a bizarre time, and I know we're probably running long, so I'm going to try to wrap it up. But if people do want to, give me what is your Instagram profile for one? The stencil one is
the flash one.
Flash one, sorry.
So that one is at Tattoo Flashers. So it's TATTOOFLASHERS. Sorry, it's a bit of a mouthful.
And then your personal?
Yeah, the personal is Julia Richey Tattoo. So that's JuliaRichey Tattoo.
Gotcha.
All one word.
And so what are you doing if people are reaching out? I guess you're just going to put people on a list and reach back out to them whenever the time comes.
So I've got a growing list just of your name, number, and what you want to get tattooed. And my plan is to just, as soon as we're allowed to open, just text everyone and hope that people still want to get tattooed.
It's like with the life of the waiting list. I've had a waiting list for maybe a year or two now, and I because I only take on 10, 15 projects at a time, I almost never get to the waiting list. And so now I would almost be embarrassed to go back to people who've been on the waiting list for 2 years and go, hey, do you still want to get that tattoo? They'll be like, no chance. I still want to get that tattoo. Like, I've been tattooed a dozen times since then. No way. But I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they're still sitting there waiting. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure, like, because you do really good, nice, big work. Like, people don't just go to anybody for that kind of thing. So
that is the difference. The more that you kind of dial into what you do, people are willing to wait a little longer. But you hate for people to have to do that too. But you feel guilty. But yeah. Well, thank you. It's great meeting you. Thanks for taking the time. And if people do want to reach out, can they do it through just Instagram and Messenger?
DMs. I usually reply to DMs within 24 hours. Or, that's the best way at the moment. I've got like a work phone number and stuff, but it's probably easier. It's all funny right now. So DM's probably the best because I'll definitely get back to it. Cool. Gone?
No, I was going to say, we'll drop, I'm sure throughout this episode, we've been dropping some of your work and maybe some of the stuff from the Tattoo Flashers site and all that. So if people are interested, they'll know what type of work you actually do. So.
Just, am I allowed to do a quick shout out?
Absolutely.
If anyone in the area wants some sort of experimental Japanese stuff, I really want to get into that. So, if anyone wants
experimental? What is experimental Japanese?
By experimental, I mean I don't have a ton of experience in Japanese.
Oh, okay, you're experimenting with Japanese. Gotcha.
Yeah, I do more old school. So, but I really would love to try Japanese. So if anyone wants it, I'll do it for a song, basically. So
awesome. Well, good deal. Yeah, I'm sure someone will take you up on that. And that, stylistically, the two kind of like one lends itself to the other. The technical approach to traditional, is pretty similar, except for a lot of times with Japanese, you have to start going a little bit bigger.
Yeah, it's artistically more challenging. For sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. And so everybody, Julia Richey, we'll put all of maybe it's been dropped in. I don't do the editing. I don't know how this stuff works. Maybe your stuff was dropped in right here, or maybe it's down in the show notes. Either way, it should be easy to find. So thanks again for taking the time. It's almost bedtime for me, but I guess you're just starting your day. You still have a full day ahead of you. So have a good day.
Have a good sleep.
Thanks. We'll talk to you soon.
See you later.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Hey, thanks again for watching. If you haven't already, we ask that you would subscribe to our channel so you can stay up to date with new episodes. Also, if you've gotten any value out of our show at all, we would be honored if you would buy us a beer at our Patreon link. And finally, if you'd like to visit our website and sign up for our newsletter, you can find out where we are going, if we're going to be in a town near you, maybe tatting at a convention or something like that. And while you're there, you can pick up some Fireside merchandise like a new t-shirt or a hoodie or a coffee mug. Thanks again.